Hello, my friend. I haven't used this mic since I was on with John Nolan. We pre-recorded a video the other day, and the settings were kind of off. It might have been Zoom. I just need a sound check real quick. Audio and video is good. Thank you, Minvi. See, I got my moderators. Got plenty of moderators in the house. All right. See you, Nelson, Wendy. All right. Good. Hello, Monica Farrow. Been with me since the start. Back when you thought I was absolutely insane. Probably the only reason you used to listen to me 3 years ago. This guy's insane. I'm going to see how far he goes. My buddy Maurice. All right, today we have a very special presentation. You will have the free PDF download, as is my custom, on Podia. It is not in the description box yet. This is a lot of data that we have to go through in this video. And it's necessary. There's a lot of images you're going to see as well. I'm also going to show you several books straight from the Archaics library, so you'll know this information is real. This isn't contrived. And by the end of this presentation, you're going to realize that there are a lot of authors out there who have been bullshitting you. It may not be intentional, but in order to put out the information that they convey, these sensationalist theories about history and how we date things in the ancient world, they fell for a paradigm. I'm not calling them liars. I'm saying they adopted information that was absolutely and provably untrue. So we're going to get into it in this video. Hello, Jahara, Errol G. Man, I know so many hundreds of you now. Almost, not quite everybody, but almost everybody you hear me name are people I've met in person at meetups. All right. Check out my new Phoenix ring. Look at that. Look at that Phoenix ring right there. It's beautiful. Now, can it be your ring? Pretty sure it can. These are made in Nepal. We were delivered 20 of them today. Pretty slick how they did it too. I know they want us to buy them. So we were delivered 20 rings from Nepal. This is the one that fits me. They're Phoenixes, and Dawn's already on top of it. We're going to try and see how many we can buy. If we can buy hundreds of them, I don't know what we'll do. If the price is right, we may give some out free with orders. We may do raffles. We have a lot of books set to the side for raffles we're about to do. Remember, this isn't gambling raffles. We didn't ask anything from you but your participation. So we have several people. We're going to mail out about 24 packages all over the world to people who are receiving books. We haven't done the raffles. We'll do the raffles live on YouTube. A lot of extra books in the Archaics library. Speaking of that, I'm talking about extra. We have a lot of extra copies. We have dual copies of multiple books and a whole bunch of classical fiction books, and I don't collect that. People send them to me, but I'm not a collector. I've also bought about 50 books, and then I realized, what am I doing? My subject matter is nonfiction. Why am I collecting all this 19th century? I mean, I got some good ones, but Big John has absolutely finished cataloging all the titles, all the authors, dates of publications, and publishers of every book you see in this library, all the books in these cabinets, and the other books that are stored away that can't fit in here. The Archaics library is very impressive, not because of the volume of books. Any library has more books than I do, but the kind of books that I have amassed. I have some really good books from the 1700s all the way up to 1860s on chronology, on the occult, mysticism, ancient comparative religion, comparative mythology. I have some very interesting stuff in this library that you see all behind me and that I'm going to show you in this video. But John John takes things a little bit literal sometimes, and I asked him for the list, and he completed it. It took him over a month and a half. And now I have some people who are going to volunteer their time looking for the free PDFs of these books online, because there's not going to be a lot of them. Half of the library is not going to be available online. We're going to PDF it for you, and we're going to provide this entire library as a free download of PDFs. But we got to figure out what's missing. So there's a lot of free stuff online already, and we have Danny of the Unfuckers and some other people who are going to be looking for these on this list. But I asked Big John for a thumb drive, and this is what he sent me. That's a little bit too literal. I didn't even know they had thumb drives that looked like this. But the entire Archaics library right here is on this thumb drive. Pretty slick. So I had Danny and one other person volunteer to start looking up all these PDFs. Well, I'm hoping to have about 3 people doing it, so we can find out real fast what's available on this list free on downline, and we can put it to the side, and then we can start. I have no problem paying for the different paywalls that have a bunch of these PDFs hidden behind the paywall. Well, we need to find which paywalls Go ahead and pay for a temporary subscription. Download as many of those PDFs we can, because it's legal. We can put them in our collection, because any book over 70 years old, and those are the only books I'm really interested in. We can make our own PDFs and freely distribute them. So that's what I want to do, guys. And like I said, this was the hardest part, was actually opening up every single book and taking a picture of the title page. That's how he did it. Then when he had over 1,000 pictures, then he sat down on his computer and just copied them all onto a text file. So that's what we're going to do. Silent Shadow, I get it. 700,000 books is a lot. My own library, my own PDF downloads is about 12,000 to 14,000 PDF books, but I'm very selective about what I don't want just any old garbage. If we have a reset, I want to make sure that good material is going into the future. There's a lot of books out there I would not want my descendants to ever review. Okay. Cool. That's out the way. Phoenix rings out the way. Thumb drives out the way. I've been in communication with Paul Cook this morning, and Billy Carson got triggered the other day. He did. Errol, I didn't hang around. I tried to get in his chat, and then I noticed that he's got the subscribers only chat deal, so I just left, and I posted it on my channel that he was over there doing that. And the call out's real. The man wants to debate any of that Anunnaki crap. I'm all for it. He's gonna get his feelings hurt. But I'm also doing the full book review. These guys have blown this book up to be way more than it actually is. It's actually an embarrassment. And yeah, it's crazy, guys. You'll be getting the full book review. Billy Carson and Matt LaCroix's book, latest book. The book review will be done right here with full PDF downloads of the critique and correcting all the misinformation. So, but this video here has nothing to do with Billy Carson, Matt LaCroix, their work, none of that stuff. We're attacking something far deeper, far more profound than the Zecharia Sitchin Anunnaki hundreds of thousands of years narrative. We're going into something that started off in occult literature only, and then bled over into the scientific, and then was accepted as fact by so many people in scientific circles. It's now a theory. It is a formal scientific theory, but it's still not a fact. What we're talking about is the precession of the equinoxes. A lot of people think this is science fact. It is not. So we're going to get into that in this presentation, where it came from. But first, I'm going to have to tell you a very profound story. In this story is critical to our understanding of how we comprehend the unfolding of historical events. This story comes out of the Bible. It is in 3 different passages in the Bible, and it concerns a very anomalous event concerning the sun. The sun not only stopped moving across the sky, but it even retraced its path up to 10 degrees of arc. This is in the historical record. It is not just in the Bible, it is mentioned in many other ancient texts. It was a phenomenon that got the ancients to completely abandon using the sun as an accurate tool for the passage of time. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you this story. It's amazing. What you're going to hear in this video is so shocking. I promise the majority of you are going to listen to this video twice. And I promise that at least half of the people that listen to this video are actively going to download the free PDF that I'm going to make available tonight. It's not ready, and it's because I have so many images to attach to the PDF. I have to PDF the images and then attach those to the PDF document. I have the document ready. It's 13 pages of amazing information. I'm telling you now, Robert Bauval, Robert Schoch, a whole bunch of other authors just like them, Graham Hancock included. I'm going to tell you now, either they're telling you the truth or this document is true. What I'm presenting in this video compared to what you've been led to believe by many popular authors cannot both be true. You're going to have to make a decision as to what you want to believe based off the data that is presented. There is no in between. There is no room for error. You'll understand when we get through this when we get through this presentation. Robert Bauval, not Robert Duvall. So, like I said, I'm not accusing anybody of lying, but I am accusing them of accepting as true something that was only theoretical, and then basing all their theories based off that theory alone. And that is a problem, as you're going to see here. So, I'm going to move this. I got everything going. We already got 1,000 people, over 1,000 people in the chat. It's time to start this presentation, guys. Leave Robert Duvall alone. All right. Okay. All right. Let's see. Hello, Shiva Shampoo. I answered your email. We'll get on that tonight. I'm looking forward to your presentation. I think you and Paul are doing a video. Yeah, Paul Cook and I will be doing a video together very soon. He's got a tricky schedule. My schedule's a little bit more open, so I told him to tell me a date. But Paul will be coming on the channel because I've researched a lot of the places that he's actually had boots on the ground. So it should be a real good conversation. All right. So you guys need to know that this is a trigger warning right here. 100%. This is a trigger warning. You guys can see it. This is explicit content. If you get easily offended, then you're probably not going to like this presentation. Right here, this individual uses science and facts. So I believe that we live in a simulation. It's a simulated construct. And I believe that the sky is following a protocol, and that protocol is to induce observers into believing they are on a planet traveling around a sun at 93 million miles distance. This is what the sky and all the measurements in the arc and everything that we're presented with the lunar phases, everything is presented for an observer on the surface of the plane to look at the curvature of the sky and to believe in this model. I don't believe scientists discovered anything. Scientists basically just looked at what was already there and made extrapolations based off all of these measurements that we see unfolding in the sky. But the sky and whatever's happening in the sky is not direct evidence of what the reality is where we are. So we're in a simulated environment. But that simulation is going to be shelved for this video. We are going to shelve simulation theory and no longer refer to it because scientists have adopted the heliocentric model, and that because they push the narrative that we are on a ball that is spinning on an axis at an obliquity of 23.5 degrees, we will use their own model in this presentation. And by the end of this presentation, you're going to see that there's some problems, some real problems. Like I said, I'm going to overwhelm you with data in this. It's going to be hard for some of you to keep up, but I'm going to have to move at a certain pace because I've got some images to show you. So let's do it. So we have an event I have to tell you about where the sun moved backwards 10 degrees. All right. So the son of Sargon II, King Sennacherib, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but King Sennacherib of Assyria came against Judah and against Jerusalem. This is at the beginning of the 8th century BC. King Hezekiah was afraid and he consulted the prophet Isaiah, this being his 14th year of reign. In the temple, the prophet told the king, don't worry about this. God is going to send a blast. Now, I don't know what blast means. It just says he's going to send a blast upon the Assyrians and Jerusalem would be saved. Though the Assyrian king Sennacherib would escape, he would be killed in his own land. Now, we'll get to that in a minute, but that's the story. It's found in the Bible. So I believe it's in 2 Chronicles and also in the book of Isaiah, but it's in 3 different passages this story is told in the Bible. So the Assyrian records, they confirm the situation. Archaeologists and historians were pretty surprised when they found at Nineveh the Assyrian annals. And in these annals of Sennacherib, it confirms the biblical record that King Hezekiah did not surrender, nor was he taken captive. So Sennacherib says in the Assyrian annals, he says, as to Hezekiah, he did not submit to my yoke. I laid siege to 46 of his strong cities, walled forts, and to the countless small villages in their vicinity, and conquered them by means of well-stamped earth ramps and battering rams. I drove out 200,150 people. Himself I made a prisoner in Jerusalem. The other way to interpret this is that the Assyrian king took over all the villages, all the outlands, all the farms, ranches, did all that. But as far as Jerusalem was concerned, his army was not able to take it. So, this is what he said. The prophet Isaiah showed King Hezekiah that the shadow of the sundial of Ahaz had ceased moving. And this was a sign from God that Jerusalem would be delivered. Now, I personally believe that every bit of this is ex post facto history. I believe that most of the biblical miraculous historical events were all written after the fact. Therefore, the Jewish scribes were able to weave in a narrative that put themselves in the middle of miraculous events that they did that just didn't happen that way. What I'm saying is this deliverance wasn't predicted. This event that caused the sun to go in retrograde 10 degrees wasn't predicted at all. The story was written after the events they depict. And the actual episode of the sun stopping in the sky and going in retrograde 10 degrees was written after the Assyrians were dealt with by something very unusual that happened. So this is very common. It's not just the Bible. There are many ancient records that were ex post facto compositions. They came way after. Remember, guys, I've already showed the evidence in multiple presentations. Every calendar of the ancient world is an ex post facto imposition. Not one of them started at the singular historical event for which the calendar its inception was based. Look at the Anno Domini calendar that you're in right now. It was created 526 years after its start date, year 1, which was supposed to be the birth of Jesus. So now here we get the sun going back in 10 degrees. Now remember, instead of moving forward, the sun stopped in the sky. And instead of moving forward 10 more degrees, it goes backwards 10 more degrees. What does this mean? It means a loss of 20 or more degrees, because when it reversed 10 degrees, how long did it stay stopped there before it starts going forward again? We have a loss of 20 or more degrees of time. When the shadow moved forward again, there would have been an additional attrition, and the shadow would never have been able to catch up where it was supposed to be. Something very unusual happened that stretched out time. This is not a shortening of days as we see in the Revelation judgments, but a lengthening of time as well. As a matter of fact, in the near future, when time is compressed, it is absolutely the opposite of what we're seeing right now in the days of the prophet Isaiah. In the days of the prophet Isaiah, time is stretched out a little bit, but in the Revelation record, time is abbreviated by a third. So, this is all very interesting. So, as the sundial was showing something unusual was happening with the sun, at the exact same time, a lightning blast from the sky incinerated 185,000 Assyrian soldiers under Sennacherib. Now, I have heard that his total army may have been up to 250,000, 300,000 strong, but 185,000 of them got vaporized by a blast, a thunderbolt from the sky. This may have been a flux tube phenomenon. This has been scientifically validated in 1994 in the sky when the comet Swift-Tuttle was hit by a lightning bolt from the surface of Jupiter, and it exploded into 21 giant cometary fragments that all slammed into the surface of Jupiter. Now, I'm not saying that event actually happened, but it happened in the sky, and we were able to record it. Remember, I believe the sky is simulated. But we're not talking about simulation theory. We're talking about the heliocentric model. We're talking about this anomaly of the sun stopping in the sky to go in reverse 10 degrees to stop in the sky once again before it started moving in the direction for which we've always seen it move. Now, the account. So, first of all, the lightning blast from heaven that caused the death of the 185,000 Assyrians is really interesting, because a Babylonian Greek historian 500 years after this mentioned this lightning bolt that killed the Assyrians. His name is Berosus. And what I find interesting is Berosus doesn't cite the Old Testament. He doesn't cite the Bible. He's got a whole bunch of writings, and there's hardly no crossover between the Old Testament and the writings of Berosus. So for him to have mentioned this event as singular is very interesting. And the account of Sennacherib approaching Egypt, having his entire army destroyed, is also depicted in the Histories, which was written in 450 BC by Herodotus of Halicarnassus. The same story of these Assyrians being vaporized by something from the sky. Here it is right here. The Histories of Herodotus. It's a huge book, and it's in small print. Gigantic book. This book is over 24 centuries old. This is the Histories by Herodotus of Halicarnassus. In this book, Herodotus also mentions this Assyrian army was destroyed, but the interesting thing is Assyria to Egypt. What's between them? Jerusalem. So here's another data point. On the Assyrian army wasn't even trying, according to the historical record, the Assyrian army wasn't even trying to mess with Jerusalem. they were on their way to go fight the Egyptians, which is something they had done multiple times. Do you see how this redactionism is done? Ex post facto histories take common events known to everybody and repackage them as if it had happened in the personal. This is what had happened. This is what they did. But that's not these type of intrigues are not the subject matter of this video. We're going to get to Precession. So, in the Apocalypse of Barak, which is one of the pseudepigraphical texts, it's a part. The Barak texts are also found in the Apocrypha, but in a book over 2,000 years old called the Apocalypse of Barak, the text reads, and it's God or the angels that are speaking. It's actually the angels that are speaking. And at that time, I burned their bodies within, but their raiment and arms I preserved outwardly. It's talking about the Assyrians. The people of Judah later visited the spot, according to Barak, and found the entire host had been vaporized in their armor. King Sennacherib, camping apart from the main host, he survived, and he and his entourage escaped back to Nineveh, where, incidentally, he was assassinated by his own sons, who themselves escaped into exile. So, when he came back, they killed him. I guess they blamed him for the loss of almost 200,000 men, but they killed him. So according to the Apocalypse of Barak, holy angels led by Ramael were unleashed by God to slay the Assyrians. In fact, the Barak text is narrated by the very angels who performed the deed. That's called the Apocalypse of Barak. It's a very interesting book. You can get free PDFs online, or you used to be able to get them a year ago. But I've seen paperbacks floating around when I was in prison, so I'm pretty sure you can order them somewhere. It's called the Apocalypse of Barak. So Sennacherib's assassination is also confirmed in Assyrian records of his youngest son, the famous king Esarhaddon, who succeeded him. Esarhaddon was the father of the most famous of Assyrian kings, Ashurbanipal. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because the biblical record concerns an event that happened, but it seems that Assyrian records and Greek records comport that this was the situation at the time. So that this army was vaporized by something very unusual. And according to the Bible, this army was incinerated by a bolt from the sky at the same time that the sun started moving in reverse. Now, this is all going somewhere. This is just a story that I'm prefacing my presentation. My presentation doesn't even begin until I'm done with this story. This is the background to what I'm going to present. So, Assyrian cuneiform inscription that mentions the beginning of a new world age in the days of Sargon II. This same inscription also declares that it was without precedent that a second world age began almost immediately afterward in the days of his son, Sennacherib. This is an Assyrian text. So we have two spectacular celestial events that occurred back to back. Now, anybody wants to see what these are and to see those source materials, it's easy. You can look at my Chronicon. In my Chronicon, for the year 721 BC, we have the Phoenix phenomenon, darkening the sun, darkening the moon, red mud, red fallout, strange things appearing in the sky. This was the year 721, and the Assyrians considered that marking the period of a new age. But 8 years later, we had another new age, according to the Assyrians, and it had never been done before, back to back like that. This year was 713 BC, as we'll see, the year the sun moved backwards. Now, in the scriptures, we read that the princes of Babylon sent emissaries to Jerusalem to consult the temple records concerning the wonder which had been done in the land. Some biblical translations say what happened in the earth. I'm going to tell you now, this is redacted. It is not true. It's in the Bible. It's in the Old Testament. This is a redacted version. There is no way that the astronomical, the astronomer, astrologer elitists of Babylon, which had ziggurats and observatories, and they had records going back thousands of years, would have ever sent emissaries to a little small, almost insignificant walled village called Jerusalem in the cuneiform. Guys, Jerusalem was never an important city in the ancient world. I have other presentations that explain this. It's not even on a trade route. So Jerusalem, this is how history is redacted, how a people take the records belonging to others and then create a story around them, injecting themselves as the main characters when they never were. What really happened were the Babylonians sent envoys. What really happened was the people in Jerusalem sent envoys to the major cities asking people, hey man, what the hell just happened? That's the way these things go. It's not the other way around. There is no way astronomical guilds and astronomical societies and intellectual academic elitists in the major cosmopolitan and international city of Babylon would have ever deferred to small walled villages for information. Same way of today, guys. Oxford, Yale, Cambridge, they're not going to defer to a junior college for information. So, it's an interesting story, but there's even scholarly material that address this, that this is highly unlikely and probably the exact opposite was true. But it's okay. It's good for the story. It's all good for the story. So, in the Old Testament, we have an account found in 3 separate biblical passages that records that an army was vaporized at the same time that over 20 degrees of time was lost when the sun stood still in the sky and then reversed its course. A series of events comported in Assyrian text, and that this entire episode led to King Hezekiah altering the calendar, and tangentially mentioned in Egyptian and Greek writings. This is what we have here. This is the story. Let me show you a chart. Let me present for you a chart. Make sure you guys are still with me. Get down to the bottom of my chat. I'm going to present. First of all, I need to get rid of this intro. Remove from studio. I got to talk out loud, guys. It's just how I am. I even research out loud, talking to myself. All right. So I'm going to share screen. Share the screen. Entire screen. Right here. Let's look at this chart. Oh, real curious. I'm sharing my screen, but can you still see me waving right here? I'm still not really well versed in how to use this app. You saw me for a second waving, but you probably won't see me now. I don't know. All right, so I need to find this tag. I need to find this. Thought I already had it out. Guess I'll do it this way. Go put that there. Copy that. Put it back. All right, cool. I'm just curious. I know you guys can see this. This should fill up my whole screen. I'm really curious, though, if y'all can see me. You shouldn't be able to. Right here. Okay, this chart right here is many different phenomena unfolding throughout the ancient past. This is a very, very packed chart. I have a video that breaks down this entire chart, but actually I have whole playlists that talk about all the different boxes, that talk about all the different phenomena that you see here. What I'm drawing to your attention here right now is this in the center. 713 BC, the sun retrogrades 10 degrees. The year is altered from 360 days to 365 days. This blue box is what I want to draw your attention to. It's the year 713 BC. All right, you can see 721 right here. This is what the Assyrians were talking about. 721, this is the Phoenix phenomenon. All these red spheres at the top is Phoenix phenomenon. There's the vapor canopy period. You guys know I got 5 videos on 1687 BC. This is the Ogygian deluge. Here's the Great Flood of Noah, 2239 BC. Over here, 3439 BC, Anuna civilization in North America. Here is the arrival of Enki in 50 Anuna, 3439. This is the Gihon flood. Here's the first appearance of the moon in the historical record, 4039 BC. That's the moon. 4039 BC, the pre-Selenites, in their traditions, they document the moon first appeared. Before that, there was no moon in the sky. So this chart here, you can study this chart for a lot. Everybody needs access to, everybody needs this chart. You can get it off my website, screenshot it. I also have charts for sale for like $5 or whatever. You get a whole bunch of charts. But this right here is where we're at. This video was about 713 BC. Sun retrogrades 10 degrees, year altered from 360 days to 365. Here's the event. This is when it happened in the historical record. Right here, 713. So I'm going to exit out that. And I want to make sure that you guys can see the chart. Astral Soul, hang around. Where is the proof, Jason? Yeah, hang around. I got a whole playlist packed full of data. I was publishing books long before I got on YouTube. Only someone new here would ever ask me to prove something. Now, let's do it. Oh, we got some charts to look. We got some charts to look at here, guys. All right, now we're going to move into. Let's go ahead and check out 713. I want to show you guys some really amazing stuff. So I'm still sharing my whole screen. That's all right, Jahara. A lot of people can't handle the proof. They can't handle it. You're right. So I'm in screen sharing mode. So now I'm going to share some stuff. Some awesome stuff. All right. So what we have here is the first thing I need to show you that we were talking about. We haven't even talked about any of that yet, so I'm not going to show that yet. Yeah. Let me get over here. So, okay, yeah, we're going to show some stuff here in a minute. I don't want to show it prematurely because you're gonna have some brain explosions when you see these pictures, and I don't want to do that prematurely. So, guys, the changing of a calendar, it's no light matter. Cultures and civilizations change their calendars often to commemorate significant events. But these changes do not apply to the outsiders, to other kingdoms, to other people. In this event, while depicted in the Bible, but it seems to be noticed by the entire world. You see, in the 15th year of King Sosink III of the Libyan dynasty of Egypt, in the 8th century BC, the 8th century BC are the 700s. The Egyptian record says a great prodigy appeared in the heavens, plunging the moon in shadow. Heaven devoured the moon. After this, the high priest, a man named Osorkon, not the same as the former king, but maybe named after a former king, he instituted a new calendar. So the moon disappears in the sky, but it wasn't nighttime. A great prodigy appeared in the sky, and it cast the moon in shadow. In this in Egypt caused the Egyptians to start a new calendar. Well, let's see what kind of calendar they started. So Sir Isaac Newton relates that the Thebans of Egypt, this is southern Egypt, this is upper Egypt, it's Egypt of the south. The Thebans of Egypt, they added 5 days to their old calendar. That's odd. Why would you add 5 days? Why would you add 5 days to the year? Because something appeared in the sky and put the moon in shadow. Why? So now we have the Hebrews, the Egyptians changing their calendars, and the Assyrians who claimed that a new age had begun. The year today is 365.24 days. That's today's year. Is this inferring that the year was previously 360 days? Is that what we are being told in ancient secular records? If the Egyptians added 5 days to the year, and the year is 365 days now, then what we're being told in a secular Egyptian text is that the year must not have been 365 days to begin with. Does this comport with other things we find? Absolutely yes. Did the sun stopping in the sky and moving in reverse add 5 days to the year? Precisely 5.24 days added to every single year afterward until the present day? Because that's exactly what's being said here. This is what's being heavily inferred. So, to answer this, we must review what ancient historians recorded. I told you guys, this is a data dump. I'm about to overwhelm you with information. And this information leads to the core conclusion that many, many modern books are absolutely wrong. Herodotus, this guy here. I admire Herodotus. Very dry reading, very historical. But I admire him because he says, I record what people say, but I am by no means bound to believe it. Yeah, that's all he did is record a whole bunch of stuff. It's amazing with this man. 450, that text is over 24 centuries old. It's amazing. Herodotus, he interviewed the Egyptian priests on this matter, who claimed that the sun had not just gone in reverse, but they recorded that the sun had done this 4 times in their histories. What? They assured me that Egypt was quite unaffected by this, and the harvests and the produce of the river were the same as usual, and there was no change in the incidence of disease or death. Only that the Egyptians modified their calendar. That's amazing. So, Egyptians modified their calendar, adding 5 days. Later on, it was specified at 5.24 days, to the end of an original calendar that was only 360 days. Just like the 360 degrees of the celestial sphere, the year was 360 days. So, further proof that this isn't an invented story, they literally dedicated those 5 days to Osiris, Isis, Horus, Typhon, which is the phoenix, and Typhon's wife, Nephte. So the added days in the Egyptian calendar were the sun, the moon, the son of the sun, the phoenix, and Phoenix's consort. That's amazing. Linking this anomaly, this change in the calendar, to Phoenix. Interestingly, Zecharia Sitchin, I'm a critic, but he's got really good historical archaeological information. It's his interpretations of the Sumerian shards, which completely contaminates his chronology that I'm a critic of. But Zecharia Sitchin, in his Earth Chronicles, in a book called When Time Began, shows that the very earliest reference in Egypt to a 365 day year only dates back to the 3rd century BC, literally 400 to 450 years after the event we're talking about now, the solaric anomaly of 713 BC. Do you understand the implications of this? By 713 BC, Egypt was already waning. It was about to be conquered by Assyria, Persia, the Macedonians, and then become the Ptolemies, the province of Rome. Guys, you understand the implications of what's being said here. There is no evidence from ancient Egypt's thousands and thousands of years of dynasties of a 365-day year until almost 400 to 450 years after the sun went in retrograde 10 degrees. This is not a coincidence, as we'll see. All right, so the same event now was mentioned by Greek historians to Alexander the Great, claiming that it was one of the great wonders recorded in their scientific books. What they're talking about is when Alexander the Great went to Babylon, and many scribes and scholars held court with him, and there was an exchange of information and all that. And one of the things that they told Alexander the Great, and I believe Callisthenes was alive to hear this. He may be the one that recorded this before Alexander had him executed. But one of the Greek writers recorded that these scholars were telling Alexander the Great the histories of their people, and one of the stories was about this event when the sun stopped moving in the sky and the Assyrians were vaporized. All of this was related to Alexander the Great, and they said it was one of the great wonders recorded in their scientific books. So we don't need to rely on Assyria, on Greek and Egyptian records to comport with what we find in the Hebrew text. In fact, we're going to look at the ancient Roman records because it was their civilization that was just beginning when this event took off. So let's look at Rome. In Romulus's reign, the months of the calendar became confused according to the historian Plutarch. The months of the calendar. Why would the months of the calendar all of a sudden become confused? And the people invented monthly systems in an effort to keep, I'm quoting this from Plutarch, I am quoting this, in order to keep to a year of 360 days. What? What could have possibly happened that all of a sudden everybody's confused? The months, though something has happened to the months to where the 360 days of the year doesn't fit into the new phenomenon. What's going on? This is a really bizarre statement. So it infers that the year had changed, and there were still efforts after this change to force fit a 360-day year despite the alteration, but this caused confusion. After Romulus, it was Numa Pompilius who ruled Rome. The confusion was introduced during the reign of Romulus. That was 713 BC. But Numa Pompilius ruled after Romulus. This is where it gets interesting. Roman records cite that in the reign of Numa Pompilius, this being his 3rd year, he changed the calendar in Rome from 360 days to 365 days a year. This is confirmed in Plutarch. Connecting this change to the calendar to the biblical account is the fact that Lucius Piso in his annals wrote that lightning came down from heaven through an incantation. And there is confusion as to when this happened, if it was during the reign of Numa Pompilius or Romulus. I'm going to say it was during Romulus because it was Numa Pompilius who corrected the calendar. But the sun stopping in the sky that caused all this chaos happened during the reign of Romulus. So the lightning bolt coming down from the sky was also during the reign of Romulus. As this was Rome, far away from Jerusalem, this infers that these lightning blasts from the sky could have been worldwide. Rome is not close to Jerusalem. You have a large stretch of the Mediterranean between them. All right. Let's see here. All right, now check this out, guys. Like I said, this is gonna get deep. So we have further evidence that the alteration of the sun's course occurred in the month of February. This is very important because it makes sense of our modern day calendar and why it's so strange. But this event of the sun stopping in the sky and going reverse and a loss of over 20 degrees of movement, a loss of time, happened in February, and that the lightning blasts were a part of a greater phenomenon. In Rome, the Februm was a sacred purification ceremony that was conducted at this time of year in February. Our modern calendar has January and February as the first and second months of the year, but they are actually the 11th and the 12th months. February is the end of the year calendar. In the ancient world, the vernal equinox was the first month. It's the beginning of the calendar. That's in March. That makes March to be month one. How do we know this to be true? Because when you count the months from March, April, May, June, July, August, when you get to September, which means the seventh month, October means when you get to September, which means the ninth month, October is Octo 10, and then November is Neve 11, and then Deceit is the 12th month, but it means 10 in Roman. Do you understand what I'm saying? The evidence of this fact that today's calendar, September, October, November, and December are the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months of our modern day calendar. However, their Latin names are 7, 8, 9, and 10. February was the 12th month. So this is why 5 days were added to the end of February, which we'll see in a minute. Let's see. Oh, I got a hater. Super Galactic. I don't believe that you got all these books in prison, knowing how the prison system is. Listen, man, I was in prison in 1990. From 1990 to 1999, I was in old red brick farms like Eastham, and I had access to old books that had been in the library, that had been in those libraries for 50 and 60 years, that were taken from older libraries, that were probably taken from older libraries because the prison system doesn't like to buy books at all. They don't throw anything away. Now, since you want to be hypercritical, that's only the source of the inception of my education. Hundreds of books. And my bibliographies are published for everybody for free on Podia. It's a download of over 1,200 books that I had access to in prison and that I read. Some of those books came from benefactors. My publisher in 1999, Booktree of San Diego, which used to be in Escondido, began sending me books every month, reprints of books from the 1700s and 1800s. My education is verifiable. And despite all the free downloads and the bibliographies that are in all my published books, you can see the bibliographies of all the books I read in the 26 years I did in prison. Not only is it verifiable, but to any intelligent trier of fact that listens to me speak about the things that I know and all these histories and all these presentations that I do would obviously conclude that I'm very well read. So your disbelief is actually illogical. Now, let's get on with this. Those are the months, guys. The original calendar. And the reason the original calendar was contorted was because of this event when the sun stopped moving across the sky and retrograded 10 degrees. Then had to move another 10 degrees to catch up with its original position, and then always stayed 20 degrees behind where it was supposed to have been. And because each stop is not really said in the historical record how long, except in the ancient Americas, they said it was 80 hours. But this means it wasn't just moving and then just going the other reverse. The tidal forces would have ripped everything apart. It was a gradual stop. Then it hung there for a long period of time. Then it was a gradual return. We're talking about probably the loss of an entire day or more. It could have been 3 days. In the Americas, it could have been 3 days of darkness. I don't know. I'm just saying that that's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So let's move on. All right. Oh, I lost my place. All right, let's see here. So, the research published in the year 1949 by a scientist named Fulger. He discovered on Attic and Etruscan artifacts and art that the magnetic polarity of the Earth had suddenly changed in the 8th century BC. What? That's Rome. That's the Italian peninsula and the Peloponnesus of Greece. That's 2 different geographical areas where artifacts were pulled and analyzed, and it was probably studying magnetite signatures, where a scientist had declared something so bizarre that it was virtually ignored by the rest of the world. Fulger published in 1949 that his analysis of ancient Greek artifacts and Etruscan Italian peninsula artifacts showed that the magnetic polarity of the Earth had switched in the 8th century BC. That is a major data point to add to this presentation of the solaric anomaly of 713 BC. 713 BC is the end of the 8th century BC. So, now, this is no surprise because it shows the historical record to be accurate. For the sun stopping and retrograding as described is descriptive of a pole shift. It may not have been a magnetic reversal. It may have only been a temporal pole shift. But the entire sky sim had to have shifted in order to do this. Remember, this is all simulated, but in the scientific model of the day, we'll stick with their facts, what they believe. So the sun moved 93 million miles away. That means the sun didn't move at all. It means Earth did. Now, don't get all bent out of shape. I don't believe in that model, but we're addressing this under their conditions because they're the ones that put this information out. So the world, the whole axis must have shifted. It must have moved for this to have occurred. The 8th century BC is the 700s when Romulus, Numa, Hezekiah, Sennacherib, they were all alive at this time. In 713 BC is the precise year, as we'll see. So it comes to no surprise that the Persians to the far east of these areas that we've been discussing also added 5 days to the calendar, and they called them the Gatha days, which means bad luck days. That makes sense. And on the other side of the world, we have a lot of research from Emanuel Velikovsky on this topic. He dates it at exactly this period of time. On the other side of the world, the ancient Mexicans called these added days the Nementemi, or useless days. They added 5 days to their calendars in ancient Mexico. The Native Americans of North America reported that the sun retarded its course for 80 hours. And in South America, they claimed that the moon fell from the sky and then later repositioned itself. we don't have just the sun moving. We have the moon going with it. What does that tell you? It tells you the entire sky moved. That's a pole shift. Whether it's simulated or whether it's actual, it's a pole shift. So, I got to show you these images now. Let me check my chat, make sure everything's going good. You guys can still hear me because we're going straight into image mode. You're not going to be able to see my face. I don't think. Let's see here. Archaics. Okay, sound is good. Thank you. Thank you, Daryl. Like the hat. Excellent. Let's go into share mode. Present. Share screen. Let's try window. I want to see something. All right, so what am I going to share? This is a window here. All right. Let's look at this. So I haven't got to that account. I want to show you. You guys can see this right here. I did a video on this book, but I have to call to your mind one single thing that I found out. This is by John Jackson, Volume 1, published in London. This is from like 1751. Chronological Antiquities, or the Antiquities and Chronology of the Most Ancient Kingdoms. This is a majorly massive work. It is awesome with chronological material. It is. Here's what we find in it. We know also that an Assyrian period ended in 712 BC. That's really interesting, guys. I wonder if this was a mistake by 1 year. And the reason I wonder that is because in his chronology, he has AD 139. But if you change that to AD 138, we all know the importance of 138. If you change it to 138, yes, please.
No one can see the book.
Nobody can see the book?
No.
Really?
Only your messages.
Wow. Hold on. We're gonna correct something real quick. So evidently that doesn't work. I need to do something else. No book, huh? Okay, cool. We're gonna have to share. We're gonna have to. The only screen sharing that works that I know how to work is my entire screen. Then I've been trying to leave this window open over here off to the side, but apparently I can't do that. Or maybe I need to talk to Martin and he can educate me. Thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and just share the whole screen. I'm gonna remove that. Okay. So I'm still. All right. No, I need to show these images. So we're gonna. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to presenting, share screen. This way I know it works. Okay. Now you should be able to see it. You should be able to see that right there. Chronological Antiquities, right here. John Jackson, 1752, 1751, something like that. I'll check the chat real quick before I continue with this presentation just to make sure that we're on board. Did you guys see that? Yep, good. Let's do it. All right. So, this is what it says. We know also that an Assyrian period ended in 712 BC. That now it's dated in his chronology that this text that he's citing about 712 BC is in AD 139. But if we change that to 138, the Phoenix number, 712 BC becomes 713 BC. It's just a data point. It's just a data point. May not be correct. I don't know. We'll get to this one later. Oh, we'll get to that later. You know what? This is here's another thing we got to look at. This really surprised me. Really surprised me when I saw this, because I wasn't anticipating seeing this in establishment sources. This is Microsoft Bing right here. All I did was search 713 BC just before this video. I wanted to see if there was anything that I may have missed that I could add to this video. I couldn't believe what I read. The year 713 BC was the first year of the pre-Julian Roman calendar. It was known as year 41 ab urbe condita, or less frequently 41 AUC. Now, I have the ab urbe condita dates in my chronicon for major events, but I had no idea that calendar of Rome actually acknowledged the year 713 BC. That blows my mind. Numa Pompilius, king of Rome, reformed the Roman calendar in this year, introducing January and February, that's the 11th and 12th month, and adding 5 days to the calendar. Wow. There it is right there. They gave up the game without even realizing how they gave it up. I need to get out of there now. So I need to see real quick if there's anything left on that I need to show you. Yeah. So also right here in this book, this is Stephen Jones, The Secrets of Time, biblical chronologist. He got all the Phoenix dates right. It's amazing. His chronology is great. I recommend this book. For some reason, he has had absolutely no time for me. I emailed him. I had other people reach out to him. He may be stringently fundamentalist Christian, and he's turned off by my research, and I get that. But his chronology is outstanding. He used the Assyrian eponyms. He used the book of Jasher, the book of Jubilees, and the Bible, and did a chronology that is fantastic. His chronology cites every text by which he derives his dates, and he perfectly dated the 185,000 Assyrian soldiers being incinerated in 713 BC. This is when the sun went 10 degrees retrograde. Right here in The Secrets of Time, he got that right. Here's John Jackson again. Look at this. All writers agree that the 23rd of February was the Terminalia, or the last day of the year, after which all intercalary months and days were added. But February, having had 28 days from the reign of Numa, the last 5 days, which at first were intercalary, were reckoned as a part of the month. So what happens here is that he was under the impression that they just discovered that the year was 365 days. So they added 5 days to the calendar. That's why they're calling it intercalary. But the actual truth is this is a text that confirms that February 23rd was the last day of the year. Something happened where they had to add 5 days. The Terminalia, last day, was February 23rd. Now, today, February is 28 days. And this is why. The sun went retrograde and caused something to happen, which messed off the calendars. What we got here? Oh, Archbishop James Ussher. Here it is right here, guys. I got so many books out. Oh, my God. I don't even have that book out. That's crazy. Oh, it's up there. It's right there. Archbishop James Ussher. I've showed you guys that book many times, but here it is. Page 82, 713 BC. You can't miss it. I'm not making this up. Annals of the World, 713 BC. What does he say? Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees which has gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees by which the degrees it had gone down. Listen to this. Jerome renders the Hebrew word. This is the Jonathan Targum in the Chaldee. It's called the Jonathan Targum, but this is Hebrew Talmudic literature. It says that The commentary on this passage, Jerome observed that the Hebrew word signifies degrees. So that's all very interesting. He's talking about the 10 degrees retrograde right here. Even a chronologist 400 years ago knew it was 713 BC. That's amazing. That's this right here, Annals of the World by Archbishop James Ussher, published in 1657. In the year 1657, that's when that was published. What is this? Annals. I can't remember what that one was. And also, oh, this is Sir Isaac Newton's annal. That's Sir Isaac Newton's annals. He said the same thing. So am I done here? I think so. So let's move on. We'll come back to these images in a minute. Now, oh, I got a lot of images to show you guys. So the 713 BC date. So interesting. That's the 713 BC date. Archbishop James Ussher's chronology is again precise for the death of the 185,000 Assyrians and the solar anomaly. Now, Ignatius Donnelly in what's the name of his book? I've read it so many times. Oh, right here, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. In this book here, Ignatius Donnelly, way back in the day, man, it's a awesome book, such an awesome book. In this book, Ignatius Donnelly, The Antediluvian World, he wrote that the Assyrian cycle began in 712 BC. 712 was 1 year after 713, so that's a good begin date. He's absolutely correct. Biblical chronologist Stephen Jones, that I already told you, also identified 713 BC. So did a popular author. I do not have his book anymore. I gave it away and I lost track of it. Missing parts of Assyrian tablets, or missing names in Assyrian tablets, by E. Raymond Capt. He also mentioned this event was 713 BC. 713 BC is also provided, and this is a subject matter of my Nunophiles, but an accurate analysis of the Mayan long count calendar. The calendar began in 3113 BC, and each Mayan cycle is a Bacton of 144,000 days, or exactly 400 years of 360 days each. This means that 713 BC is 2,400 years of 360 days, or 6 Mayan Bactons, each Bacton being 144,000 days since its start date. So, real simple, 3113 BC, 24 centuries perfectly to 713 BC. The Mayan long count actually marks this year, 713 BC. You know what? I'll show it to you in a chart here in a minute. So, by accurately factoring the Bactons of years of 360 days each, the entire 1,872,000 days of the long count is exactly 52 centuries. 52 is the perfect calendar round in ancient calendrical American systems. But the academies calculated it using the modern 365.24 day year, so they got 5,125 years, and then declared stupidly that 2012 was the end of the Mayan calendar. Now, my Archaics veterans, you already know, I had books published before 2012 telling people that's wrong. 2012 is not the end of the Mayan long count. But who was I? I was nothing but a convict in a prison getting my books published. So nobody listened to me. But the prophecy attached to the Mayan long count end date is that time would collapse. Did time collapse in 2012? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It didn't happen. Therefore, Archaics 1, Academies 0. Let me show you what I'm talking about here, because it's really embarrassing, guys. What makes it worse is that the Mayan year was called a ton, and a ton was 18 months. Each month had 20 days. I don't know why the scholars got it wrong. 20 times 18 is 360. How can you miss that? How can you miss that the Mayan long count is exactly divisible? Every Bacton and the entire long count is perfectly divisible by 360. How did you get that wrong? I don't get it. I just don't get it, guys. The overlap between all these reigns of people existing at that time is Hezekiah in Jerusalem, Sennacherib of Assyria, Romulus of Rome, Salsinka III of Egypt. It pinpoints 713 BC. I don't understand how they got that wrong, but let me show it to you so you understand precisely. People are visual learners. I get that. So I'm about to show you exactly what I'm talking about. There's no way they should have got this wrong. Go back to screen share. Entire screen. There it is. Let's go. Let's go in deep, guys. Let's look and see what the scholars have buried. All right. First of all, look at this chart here. So the Mayan long count started in 3113 BC. Here it is right here. It's 13 Bactons. Each Bacton is 144,000 days. What's interesting is even the yugas are all divisible by 360 of India, and they're also divisible by 144. 144,000. The yugas, you take 144,000 days and you just add it to another 144,000 days and you have your yuga system. Just keep adding 144,000 days and you have a totally different yuga. 144,000 times 3 is 432,000 days. Kali Yuga. Keep adding 144,000, you have a different yuga, a different age. The reason this is we need to understand this is because look at this right here. 21-year disparity in the start dates of all these systems. The Mayan Itza Temple of the Cross system, 3121 BC. Mayan long count calendar, 3113 BC. 3102 BC, Brahmanic Kali Yuga age begun. 3100 BC, the Sumerian Enoch Etana reign. Here's 3100 BC, the Egyptian Narmer Scorpion King. These last two are just approximates, so they could be dead ringers for 3113 BC. And what's crazy is this entire 21 years that all these calendrical systems started is right here synchronized at the 108th year of Enoch's reign. Right here. Enoch is said to have ruled for 300 years, but 300 years is precisely 108,000 days. It's all right here, guys. The calendrics are here's the 1200 years. You need to know this because we're about to see it. Here is the appearance of the Watchers, the Anuna, when Enki appeared in 3439 BC, right here. Here it is. It is precisely 432,000 days. 144 times 3. It is 3 Mayan Bactons from the appearance of Enki in the Anuna 1,200 years before the Great Flood. Right there, the end. 432,000 days is only 12 centuries. It's only 1,200 years because it's divisible by 360. Let's move on to here. Here it is again. Here's the Mayan log count right here. 2,400 years from the beginning of the Mayan long count at 3113 BC, moving all the way to 713 when the sun retrograded 10 degrees right here is 864,000 days. What yuga is that? Because it's definitely a yuga. Now, it's 2,400 years right here. Divisible by 360. Perfect. This means, look at the chart right here in the middle. This means that a Mayan Bacton of 144,000 days was 400 years. Then a second Bacton, then a third Bacton, then a fourth Bacton, then a fifth Bacton. Then the sixth Bacton perfectly marks 713 BC. When all of a sudden the year changes, here's the bottom. The year changes from 360 days to 365.24 on 713 BC. The Mayan calendar perfectly marked it. After that, what happens? A Bacton doesn't change. It's still 144,000 days. But what happens? It becomes 394.3 years. What? The Mayan long count is a day count system. This is why I have repetitively called bullshit on all these guys that try to argue with me about the Mayan long count. Some of them try to claim, hey, I was educated under a Mayan shaman, and I'm telling you that the Mayan steels and the Mayan records have astronomical calculations that perfectly. As soon as you say astronomy to me with the Mayan long count, I know you know nothing about what you're talking about. And nor do these Mayan shamans that are trying to sell you this BS. Because from the beginning, every scholar knows the Mayan long count counts 1,872,000 days. It was a day count system from the beginning. This has never been unknown. It seems to be only unknown to those who are trying to publish material about it and trying to sync it with the new age began in 2012. It's all BS. Because using nothing but the days of the Mayan long count, which are measured in 20-day sections for 1,872,000 days, we don't get 2012 anymore because of what happened in 713 BC. Now we get 2046. Here it is. 2046 time collapses, ending the 13th Bacton. It also ends the 13th Empire, which is represented by the United States of America. Now, it also ends the 13 British colonies that became the 13th Empire, which is modeled after the 13 clans of the Maya. All of this happens under the 13 heavens. This whole timekeeping system began when our calendar originally during the vapor canopy period here had 13 months. So let's move on. Again, we've already seen that one. Let's move on. Atlantis, the antediluvian world, right there. Ignatius Donnelly. That's where we pulled that 12 day dating out. Here's a better representation of the Mayan long count, and there's 713 right there in the middle. Here's where everything changed right here, and the change was perfectly marked in the Mayan long count. It's right there, guys. It's amazing what we have here. I'll put links to all my chart packs too. I haven't done that in a long time. I used to link chart packs all. I haven't done it in forever. I'll put links for the chart packs in this video because we're going through all these charts here. But here it is, guys. 2046 becomes 13.0.0.0.0 of the Mayan long count when time collapses. How do we know that the Mayan long count is counting down to a different calendar time collapsing? Because the book of Revelation says so. The book of Revelation says during the Great Tribulation period, 1/3 of the day, 1/3 of the night, 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, 1/3 of the stars will be eliminated. This means we'll have 16-hour days and a 243-day calendar. What does that mean to us? It means there's going to be a lot of changes, a whole bunch of changes during that period. So we'll get to that, and we've already got to that in other videos. So I think we've discussed all this. That's Sir Isaac Newton's book there. All right. So let's move on. We need to address some more stuff before we go into any more of these. Stop sharing. Make sure you guys are still with me. All right. Leap year's easy, man. Leap year's not even a mystery. And it's because of the 0.25. The year now is 365.24 like 9, something like that. That means that every 4 years we need to add a day because 25% plus 25% is 50% of a day. But that's 2 years. A third year adds 25%. That's 75% of a day. A fourth year makes almost perfectly, not quite perfect, but almost perfectly another day. Therefore, every 4 years, if you add a day, then you can get a calendar pretty damn precise for at least 800-900 years. Yeah. Leap year is not a mystery. It's an attempt to correct this problem. Checking my chat. Yeah, I got hundreds. I got 300 and something charts all drawn by hand, but I got some new computer I did on computer too. All right. All right, so we're moving along. You guys can hear me fine. That's good. All right. Guys, we haven't really even got to the presentation yet. I'm giving you the backstory because all the data that I'm giving you right now will lead you to the same conclusions I had. It's inescapable. It's inescapable. Only if you want to be willingly blind are you not going to come to the same core conclusions I came to. And it's just by looking at the data. Remember, Franz Boas in the 1880s said, record enough facts and the answers will fall like ripe fruit. That's all we got to do. We're recording enough facts and the answers are going to be revealed to us. It's just common sense. There really are no mysteries. The only mystery is all the dumbasses that are trying to teach history. They don't know what they're talking about. So let's do it. Let me find where I was real quick. All right. Charlie Boy UK, my analysis of the 2012 Olympic ceremony is on the way. It's on the way. I've talked about it a lot, but I haven't released it. Guys, I'm just not in a hurry for 2024 predictions. All these people that are laying all these predictions out and saying great big things are going to happen. I said that last year, but it doesn't matter. We're not near there yet. Remember, 2024 doesn't even truly begin until March. That's why I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about putting my predictions out yet. You're going to get them. I promise you're going to get them. But we're still technically in 2023. Even under the Olympiad system, the year has not changed. The year we're not in the Olympiad. In March we begin the Olympiad. We're in the Olympiad. That's where we're going to start seeing some major shit. Yeah, that's not no. We're not there yet. Let's see. I like thinkers though. I like thinkers. I just seen somebody. My chat's moving so fast I can't find it. But somebody said 900 years. Oh, there it is, Gnostic baseball. 900 years. How many years are we off then? Listen, I like your thinking, but in 1582, that problem was corrected. We've corrected it a few times. They don't wait 900 years. So yeah, check this out. All right, let's go. Where am I at? So adding 5 days. This is what we've come up with. We've come up with the sun. There was a strange pole shift type event, flux tube activity. Like you can call them plasma blasts. I don't care what you call them. It's not important to me. We had all the stuff going on, and the result of all this phenomena was that all these civilizations added 5 days to their calendar. So we need to understand that this was truly mysterious. And we need to understand that the acadummies are totally wrong. You see, let me put it in perspective. The acadummies like to be condescending upon our predecessors. They like to pretend the ancients were stupid. So they claim that the year has always been 365.22 years, and that the use of a 360-day calendar in antiquity was because they had not yet learned the true length of the year. They were building temples. It's so stupid, but this is what they say. This is what's in the encyclopedias. It is just so dumb. It is so dumb. So it's ridiculous because this is what's promoted in scientific papers and encyclopedias. They didn't know the true value of the year. Now, but we have seen that the calendar changed everywhere and at the exact same time. That right there is evidence that academia is totally wrong about this. But there's a lot more evidence as well. So something uniformly changed. Something changed. And the addition of 5 days wasn't just something that happened as a matter of fact. What did we read? They were called the useless days. They were called the bad luck days, the dark days. Yes. So the Akkadian calendar, all scholars know this, that's the Near Eastern scholars, Sumerologists, they all know. The Akkadian calendar was only 360 days. This was in 2000 BC. So Alexander Heidel, he cites the scholar Najbauer in writing that in the early Babylonian times, the calendar was 12 months of 30 days each for a perfect 360-day year. This is long before 713 BC. Of great significance is that all of the earliest calendars employing ages and cycles, the Sumerian Ner system that I've published widely about, the Shar count system, the Olmec, the Mayan, the Brahmanic, were all divisible by 360, and not one of them can be equally divided by 365 or 365.24. It's impossible. It's impossible. All these ancient systems, all these ancient civilizations that built pyramids and temples that are far more complex than modern academia will admit, technolithic artifacts. And yet they didn't even know how many days were in the year. And yet they built monuments that were dedicated to every day of the year. How did that happen? Doesn't even matter. Sir Isaac Newton assures us that the 360-day year was the only year known to the ancient Israelites, and that they brought this year out of Egypt, that it was the official ancient Egyptian calendar, 360 days, that at the temple of Osiris, the priests ceremoniously filled 360 bowls of milk a year. Every morning at sunrise, the Egyptian priests came out and they filled one of the empty bowls. The temple had 360 niches. What? Academia completely ignores all this. The Genesis record of the Great Flood provides another source of proof that the years in the antediluvian world were reckoned at 360 days. We are told therein that the flood lasted for 5 months, and that all in the same sentence in the book of Genesis, all in the same sentence. I'm going to show it to you. It says the flood lasted 5 months, and that these 5 months were 150 days. That is self-referencing. The only way 5 months could be 150 days is if each month was 30 days. That means 5 is 7 less than the 12 months of the ancient calendar. Therefore, all you have to do is extrapolate 360 days in the Genesis year. Pliny the Elder in Natural History 2,000 years ago admits that the ancient Athenians of Greece knew the year to be 360 days. You can't get around this data. Can't get around this data. Scientists don't read ancient historical documents. They just don't. So, Emanuel Velikovsky, love his research. He wrote a lot about this event, about the sun standing still. Emanuel Velikovsky, in his book Worlds in Collision, listen to this. He wrote that the Vedic texts of India record an older year that was 360 days. The Hindu texts after that formally recorded a 360-day year. Now, Ctesias wrote that the Babylonian calendar was 360 days, and that the Babylonian the walls of Babylon were 360 furlongs in length to mirror the days of the year. They built a wall around Babylon that was perfectly measured out at 360 furlongs. And Babylon wasn't round. That's just the measurement. Babylon's just a weird shape. So every civilization records its calendrical facts in its architecture. We've always done that. Look at the cathedrals. They do it. The Assyrian decade was 3,600 days. The Assyrian decade. This is 10 periods of 360 each. Assyrian decades are the reason why Zecharia Sitchin and Berosus got the Shar system wrong. They claimed the Shar was 3,600 years. It wasn't. It wasn't. They were talking about the Assyrian decades, and this has been proven. I've showed many videos about it. Now, the Shar system was a day count system, and these were decans. So The Egyptian Eber's papyrus maintained a year of 360 days. Plutarch wrote in the reign of Romulus that the year was 360 days. This is before it was changed by Numa Pompilius. The Chinese calendar anciently had 360 for the number of days. You just can't make this shit up. Scientists need to read. Scientists definitely need to read historical books. Now we're gonna go deeper. I got some things to show you. We're gonna share screen again. Share entire screen. All right. So what do we have here? Nothing. We didn't have anything there. What do we have here? Oh, we got a lot. So here's the book I'm talking about, Worlds in Collision by Immanuel Velikovsky. Fascinating book. Fascinating book. This is Sir Isaac Newton's The Chronology of Ancient Kingdoms. I just cited that. He talks about a 360-day year in the ancient world. Here's Pliny the Elder's Natural History. We just cited that one. 360 days was the only year the ancients knew. Look at that. Here's the book of Genesis. Right here. Chapter 7, verse 24. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. There it is. You know what I should have shown? Oh, I should have showed the whole verse. It says 5 months. Damn. Yeah, in Hebrew, this is all run on. There are no punctuation, none of that. Up here it says 5 months, and then it quantifies that by saying 150 days. I might have a bigger picture. Hold on, I might have a bigger picture. You know what? I got a giant Bible over here somewhere. I'm going to show it to you on camera. I'm going to show it to you on camera. Let's see here. Yeah, I gotta stop. I gotta stop doing that just to look at that, because I know what I saw was real. Genesis chapter 7, 24. Oh, I'm gonna go crazy looking for this. If somebody knows the exact verse, you can tell me where it says it was 5 months. All right, I'm not gonna waste y'all's time with it. I'm gonna Google it. Yeah, I can't give y'all some misinformation. I'm about to Google it right now. Oh, man, I thought I don't like how I cut that quote out. Real quick. Get my. Where is this? The 5 months section. Oh, I might have it right here. Let's see. Or maybe not. Damn, I need somebody to help me out. 724. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Well, 150 days is 5 months. It says 150 days again on chapter 8, verse 3. Somewhere else it talks about 5 months. And I can't find it right now. But I'm not going to break up my narrative. Not going to break up my narrative. I'll put it in the PDF, the free download. Because I need to share all these. Or I might have it here. Let me look. Let me share the screen again and look in this file. Because I may have stuck it in there. All right, sharing screen. Okay. So what book is this? Is that it? I've got. Okay, here's Alexander Heidel. I just quoted him, the Babylonian Genesis, about the Assyrian 360. That was Alexander Heidel. I don't know who this is. Here's Symbol, Sex, and the Stars. Ernest Busenbark. I've recommended this book many times. He says the use of mathematics and astrological calculations began about the 8th century BC. What? The use of mathematics and astrological calculations began about the 8th century BC. Why all of a sudden was there interest in astrology in the 8th century BC? What did we just review happened in the 8th century BC? Therefore, knowledge of astronomy advanced rapidly, and records of that period reveal notations concerning the spring equinox, new moon, eclipses, positions of the stars, and the rising of the fixed stars. The first eclipses observed in Babylonia and mentioned in the Almagest are from 721 to 720 BC. My Archaics veterans, you already know what happened in 721 BC. That's what the Assyrians were talking about 2 ages appeared back to back. 721 BC is precisely the date of the phoenix darkening the sun. A lot of material on that in Chronicon and in my videos. 721 was also the date that the Assyrians deported the 10 tribes of Israel, and they became the 10 lost tribes of Israel. 721 was the date. It's right here. This is really interesting. Isolating the 8th century BC as a major turning point in ancient times when they started meticulously documenting everything. I would too if something changed my year. All right, this Augustus, the worship of Augustus Caesar. This is Alexander Del Mar. I use this book to show you how the Anno Domini calendar came into being. The video about the Anno Domini calendar AD system we're under today. This guy explains the origin. It was specifically designed to do away with the Phoenix cycle of 552 years. In this book, we find an astrological cycle mentioned by Dupuy and Greswell, the last of whom blunders in connecting it with the ecliptical cycle, whatever. It is evidently the 10th power of the 360-year cycle mentioned in the Surya Siddhanta. Here it is. So the ancient Hindus, Surya Siddhanta has a 360-year cycle. Remember, I show you guys many, many times, years have often been mistaken for days, over and over and over. It was an easy mistake to make when they were translating one thing from another. So where are we at in this? Okay, so here's another. I did another video on this book, Long Livers, A Curious History. This is by Eugenius Philolethes. It's a really good book. In this book, we find right here, the Persians followed the Egyptians in the division of the year after Cambyses, lord of Egypt, having destroyed the tomb of Samandius, found in it a circle of gold of 360 cubits in circumference. Every one of these cubits marked the days of the year by the engraving made upon them of the rising and setting of the planets, signs, and fixed stars of the first and second magnitude. It is these which are so efficacious in the conjunction of luminaries, according to all astronomers. Wow. This book's over 270 years old. It's talking about an ancient text that talk about going in a tomb and finding basically artwork that recognizes a 360-day year. Can't make this shit up. All right. Chronological Antiquities, John Jackson. Let's get into it. This is amazing. It is amazing what we're going to read right here. I didn't want to cite these like I did the other stuff. I wanted you guys to see the business. This is amazing. This is amazing stuff right here. The lunisolar year of 12 months, each of 30 days, and the whole consisting of 360 days, was the original stated year of mankind, and was in the most ancient times used by the Egyptians, Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. Testimonies of the best and most ancient writers. Diodorus Siculus relates that the sepulture of Osiris, the priest who were appointed to bewail his death, filled 360 milk bowls every day. This was to denote the primitive Egyptian year used in the reign of Osiris. The same year was also represented by an ancient custom in, what is that? At Akanth, about 15 miles distant from Memphis, on the Libyan side of the Nile, for 360 priests to fetch water every day from the Nile and to pour it into barrels full of holes. This naturally represented the 360 days of the year in a continual flow or succession. Now it says, let's see, of the moon, which they observed to be finished in 30 days. So a month was 30 days. This formed the lunisolar year of 360 days. Wow. Which was the only stated year of all nations for many ages. It appears from the history of the antediluvian Chaldean kings of Berosus that the original Chaldean year, the most ancient of all others, consisted of no more than 360 days. Wow. This year was represented by the compass of the walls of Babylon, said to be built by Semiramis. You guys remember Queen Semiramis? Semiramis, who employed 2 millions of men in the work, who built a stadium or furlong every day, and the whole was finished in a year, and was 360 furlongs, equal to the number of days of the year. This is the account of Ctesias related by Diodorus Siculus. Having treated fully of the most ancient years and shown that the original year of all nations was lunisolar and consisted of 360 days, and how the solar and lunar periods were by degrees improved and perfected, and by intercalations made to correspond with each other, before I proceed to the Egyptian antiquities and chronology, it is necessary to show that in the most ancient times preceding the Noahic flood and after it, the Egyptians reckoned the reigns of their fabulous gods and demigods by years of a single lunar periods only, or of 30 days. It's amazing. Graham Hancock, you need to amend your opinion about the dating of Atlantis, and you and I can have dinner. Dinner's on me. 9,000 moons, guys, is when Atlantis happened. That makes it the 13th century BC, and that makes everything else Plato said about it true. About the iron, domestication of horses, the cereals, the fact that Athens, Greece was what existed at the time. Yeah, 9,600 BC that's adult fantasy. Manetho has seen the Chaldean history of Berosus, and from the most ancient Babylonian records reckoned in 10 dynasties, 120 Sars of 10 years each, or 1,200 Chaldean years of 360 days each. There it is, guys. This is what's on my charts. This is the 432,000 years of the Kali Yugi. This is 432,000 days. 432,000 divided by 360 is a perfect, here it is, 1,200 Chaldean years from the appearance of the Anuna and Enki to the Great Flood. 1,200 years. 432,000 days. It's all here, guys. Okay, taken from the Annals of the Temple of Belus, but it was impossible for Manetho to find any kings who reigned in Egypt before the flood, and therefore he feigned a catalog of kings who really lived several centuries after the flood to be antediluvian deities or god kings, and made their times equal to the 10 antediluvian kings of Berosus, and to be just 1200. Look at that, 1200 old Egyptian years of 360 days. You can't make this up, guys. All those handwritten charts I did showing the pre-flood world, the 432,000 days is only 12 centuries, is all right here confirmed. Meaning, Billy Carson, Zechariah Sitchin, and Matthew LaCroix, and everybody who is promoting 432,000 years of an impossible BS history is promoting adult fantasy. It's all BS. Here it is. Vulcan is the ancient name for both Phoenix and Enoch. Here it is. Vulcan. 1,200 years of Vulcan to the flood. Man. This observation has not hitherto been made, and is both remarkable and necessary for the understanding of Egyptian chronology, and highly deserves the attention of the learned reader. Whether Manetho had any other foundation than what I have supposed for fixing the beginning of Vulcan's reign, just 1,200 years of 360 days each before the flood, and so making it commence 1,072 years after the creation, cannot be shown. But yet, as Vulcan was a Phoenician deity, brought with several others into Egypt by the first Hermes, and appeared by the old Phoenician annals, made use of by Sanchuniathon, to have lived many centuries before the flood. It's talking about Enoch. Let's see, had the same epic with the Phoenician, but at their exodus or going out of Egypt, they were commanded by God to begin the year at the original epic of it, which was the vernal equinox. Here it is, guys. I've tried to tell you multiple times. February is the 12th month. Vernal equinox marks the first month. The vernal equinox is the new year for all the old world civilizations. In the vapor canopy period, it was the vernal equinox that began the year. It was March. This year, 2024, actually begins in March. But that's okay. When the Israelites went into Egypt, they knew no other than the Chaldean lunar solar years of 360 days, which Abraham brought into Canaan, and which was the same with the Phoenicians and the Egyptian year. All right, we covered that data set. It's amazing material, isn't it, guys? I'm gonna do another sound check real quick. All right. All right. I just need one person to tell me I'm still good on sound. Sounds good. Thank you, Jen. Jen's account. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. All right, guys. We going deeper. We're not done. I'm sorry if this one is 2 hours already, but we're not done. So, having considered all this, we need to consider pole shift. What else can we consider? Use common sense. If the sun stopped moving in the sky and then went backwards 10 degrees, then stopped moving in the sky again to go forward 10 degrees, we're talking about a temporal pole shift. It wasn't all the way, but it's a pole shift. The axis has shifted. This is the model they have given us. So we're going by that model according to the historical record. Now, we know the Phoenix caused the Great Flood in 2239 BC. All my Archaics veterans know it. It is a matter that I'm perfectly willing, if there's anybody anywhere in the Netscape that thinks they're qualified to debate the actual year the Great Flood of Noah happened, and you think it's not 2239 BC, I would love to debate you. because I will overwhelm you with data. It was 2239 BC. That is when Alpha Draconis was the pole star, called Thuban. Alpha Draconis is the eye of the dragon. Thuban was the pole star. So the year was 360 days. The deluge was actually referred to as the fall of the dragon. In the book of Enoch, we find out that Noah looked up and he saw that the earth had become inclined. It was a pole shift going on. But you know what? It was temporal. It wasn't nothing real serious because the year continued at 360 days without change at all. So the flood was the fall of the dragon. This is what we find in ancient American art everywhere. We see the dragon, and we see the fall of the dragon being subdued. Man's higher than the dragon, and we always see a divine tree on all the pyramid reliefs and all the wall friezes. But we also see the great eye of the dragon that's very prominent in ancient American art. It's the pole star Thuban. And I got that out of a lot of books, guys. Not just these right here. This is Herodotus. This is Ignatius Donnelly, but also Dictionary of Phrase and Fable from 1902. Yeah, it goes a lot into all the pole star, stellar. Here's all about stellar theology. I had to go through Lost Language of Symbolism to pull out all this, to pull out a lot of the data from this book. I went through White Goddess, Robert Graves, and I have the Greek myths right there. And I showed that before on my channel. I had to go through Robert Graves' myths because I had to find out some things about why there are absolutely no myths, no traditions, no legends, nothing, no fables, fairy tales, nothing about the transition of pole stars from Thuban to Polaris. Nothing. So I was really perturbed by that. So I pulled the book off the shelf up here. This is Chambers' Book of Days. Chambers' Book of Days is all about all the legends, myths, traditions, science, everything attached to every day of the year. Here it is, Chambers' Book of Days. There's nothing in here. Nothing in here about precession. There's nothing in here about the change of pole stars. And none of this is here. So I was even shocked. I have the entire 1902 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. I was shocked. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Precession's not even in here. Not even in here. So, I mean, I'm just showing you some of my source materials. You can see them all lined out in the deal. But listen, we're gonna get to it here in a minute. This is gonna blow your mind, guys. It's gonna blow your mind when you fully understand why this data was laid out in this way, so you can process each piece. Each piece needed to be processed. There was an anomaly. It involved the sun acting strangely. The result was the year changed. Here's all the proof that the year was that way. I have to lay it out for you like that because you need to draw the same conclusions I do, but you need to make sure they're your conclusions. So, more evidence that Phoenix caused the deluge is the fact that Thuban and Polaris, listen to this, are exactly 34.5 degrees separated. Okay? Let me show a picture. Before I continue this, I need to show you this picture so you can process this correctly. This is what we are being told. I drew it out for you. All right, share screen, entire screen. All right, let's get into it. I'm sharing my screen. I'm going straight in here. You should be able to see this. All right. This is the model given to us. You can see in white right up here. This blue sphere is the world according to science. In the world according to science, our axis, which is called obliquity, it's tilted at an obliquity of 23.5 degrees. That means right now that this axis that our world is supposedly spinning on is pointed directly at Polaris. It's the present pole star. This pole star, look at the middle, is 34.5 degrees away from Thuban. Thuban is Alpha Draconis. Here it is, the eye of the dragon. This is the original pole star. when all these histories unfolded, the whole vapor canopy history, Adam and Eve story, the 10 kings, the Sumerian king list, the Sodom and Gomorrah, all ancient Israelite histories, all that is under Thuban. Original pole star, Alpha Draconis, Eye of Draco. It's Thuban. But then suddenly, without precedent, without any legends, traditions, temple alignments, anything, there's no evidence whatsoever for the transition between Thuban and Polaris. A distance in the stellar canopy of 34.5 degrees. Each degree is 72 years in the precessional cycle as told to us. We're told that each degree is 72 years. 34.5 degrees times 72 is a phoenix number perfectly. It's 2484. So we are led to believe that the transition between Thuban and Polaris is 2484 years. 2484 years is the exact number provided by Aristarchus, who said that the world is destroyed between periods of 2484 years. But this is a precessional number, and it doesn't make sense because we have no history whatsoever for this transition. All we have is that the ancient world recognized Thuban as the pole star. Then something happened, and now all of a sudden Polaris is the pole star. But the 2,484 years necessary for the transition is missing. No legends, no traditions, no fairy tales, no monuments, no star charts, no date stelli. Nothing tells us of this period. So, okay, it's going to make sense to you in a minute, guys. That's what we've been told. Anybody can get a calculator out, and all you got to do is take 2484, divide it by 72, and you'll get 34.5. That's what you got to do. It's 2484 is a phoenix number. It's divisible by 138. Remember, Phoenix is steadily attached to this phenomenon. Even in the historical record, the Egyptians named 2 of the days. 2 of the added 5 days were named Phoenix and Phoenix's wife, his consort. So the problem with precession is that the moving of the pole 34.5 degrees is completely undocumented. The ancients knew of Thuban, and they knew of Polaris with no time between them. This is a problem, guys. This is a huge problem. Make sure I'm not sharing my screen so you guys can see me right now. Cool. Now remember, I believe that we live in a sentient hologram. The simulacrum, guys. And all this arithmetic just further proves it to me. But we're sticking with the scientific model. We're going by what they're trying to tell us. Science assumes that this precession phenomenon has been going on for tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of years. But the truth is that it was not mentioned by any ancient writer until after 700 years after the sun went 10 degrees retrograde in 713 BC. Process that for a minute. The phenomenon of precession was never described by any ancient authors until 700 years after this event. That's astounding. Here's what's further astounding. The reference no longer exists. Historians that claim that precession was understood claim also that the author who wrote that text, his writings are no longer with us. We can't verify that. That sounds real curious, does it not? His name is Hipparchus. His writings have not survived. It is claimed that Hipparchus discovered precession is precession of the equinox. Now, it's totally ancient. It's totally unknown to the ancient world. In the earliest known reference to Polaris, process this. The earliest known historical reference to the pole star Polaris dates back to the 5th century. The 5th century, guys. Stobaeus, a Greek philosopher, described Polaris. That's it. This is after 713 BC. There are no mentions, there are no historical references. Polaris isn't even on the map before this period. All of a sudden it's there. It's not there, and then the sun goes 10 degrees retrograde, goes forward another 10 degrees to catch up, 80 hours of darkness in the Americas, and all of a sudden Polaris is an issue, but it's an issue 200 something years later. Something's not adding up here, guys. It's not procession, it's precession. P-R-E. The Sumerians, guys, you gotta understand, the Sumerians published star catalogs and divided the day into seconds, minutes, and hours. And the sky was divided into arc minutes of 360 degrees. But they didn't know of precession. The Vedic writers had calculations running into the 7th digits and knew nothing of precession. The Mayan published very extensive and complicated Venus almanacs, but they didn't know anything of precession. It is not without significance that the 365-day year, Polaris as a pole star, the entire zodiac, and precession are all entered into the historical record after 713 BC. I have already done presentations on the zodiac not being older than 200 BC. Even the Chinese zodiac of 12 animals was introduced around 300 to 100 BC, and this is according to Chinese scholars. This is way after, this is over 400 to 500 years after 713 BC. There's a lot of deceit in the academic community, guys, especially when researching the zodiac. They cite that the ancient Chinese divided their year into 12 equal parts when asked about the origin of the zodiac. But every culture did that. A calendar of 12 equal parts separated by 30 days is a 360-day year. That is not evidence of a zodiac. For anybody who wants to know, I'll probably put the link in the description box, but I have a very compelling PDF free download that also talks about how the zodiac was invented around 200 BC. We can't get around that. If you want to cite Vedic astrologers and Vedic deals, I will also show you Vedic scholars who claim that the zodiac was imported by the Greeks. This is coming from India. You can't say Jason made any of this up. I know a lot of people have a hard time breaking free from their belief systems, but we have to take into consideration that all these things were created after 713 BC and centuries afterward. The actual zodiac, the circle of animals, was introduced into China during the height of Buddhism, centuries after the change of a 360-day calendar to 365. We can't escape this fact. But why is all this so important? What makes all this data so important that it had to be laid out to you in this fashion? The alteration of the year from 360 days to 365 days, the sun retrograding 10 degrees, axial tilting toward a new pole star, and the later inventing of the zodiac and the phenomenon of precession derived only from this event completely changes the scenarios postulated by Giorgio de Santillana, however you say his name, Santillana, I don't know, and Hertha von Deschend, who in 1969 published Hamlet's Mill. It's a fascinating book. It's an essay investigating the origins of human knowledge and its transmission through myth. It introduced the idea that ancient structures and events could be dated using the precession of the equinox. They introduced the idea that the precession cycle could be 26,000 years. It was theory that was then adapted and used by Graham Hancock, brought into his famous books, Fingerprints of the Gods in 1995, Heaven's Mirror, Quest for a Lost Civilization in 1998, The Message of the Sphinx, A Quest of the Hidden Legacy of Mankind, was with Robert Bauval in 1996, and The Orion Mystery, Unlocking the Secrets of the Pyramids by Robert Bauval and Adrian Gilbert in 1994. Hancock and Bauval have spawned an entire historical thesis dating civilizations, structures, and traditions by precession and the zodiac to ancient dates thousands of years before the zodiac was even invented and precession began in 713 BC with a temporal pole shift. You can't date Göbekli Tepe, the Great Pyramid, and the Sphinx using a system that wasn't even invented until thousands of years later, after those places were built. Further, concerning Hamlet's Mill, which influenced these authors, the scientific and the academic community dismissed the book as nonsense. That no ancient precession acknowledging civilization existed from 4000 to 100 BC. The authors rejected the interpretation of myths and monuments in favor of their own highly subjective interpretations in order to place a knowledge of precession on a civilization long before precession even existed or was known. That is amazing. That is astounding when you think of the implications to these men's research. Red Scotland, you need to go. The Zodiac was created at the point God made everything. You just need to go. You're not even ready for Archaics at all. You definitely have not seen my Zodiac presentation, citing nothing but historical sources. The Zodiac is not new. There is no evidence of the Zodiac anywhere. Even the Zodiac of Dendera. The Zodiac of Dendera in Egypt. Oh, there's proof of the ancient Zodiac, right? No, there's proof that the Greeks built a Zodiac in Egypt at the Temple of Dendera around 80 BC, just like the historical record admits they did. That's a 600 and what? 70, 80 years after 713 BC. Yeah, man. You need to be educated, or at least be willing to be educated before you come into my house with that BS. We're not done, guys. We got some drops. We're closing. But it's amazing, guys, but there's another problem. There's another problem here. Precession may not even be factual. Let me explain. Let's look at the chain of knowledge. First, a well-established and widely accepted concept in astronomy does not mean it's true. Precession is not scientific fact. The accepted theory of precession of the equinox is called scientifically the Luni-Solar Theory. Just like ice ages promoted as fact, they're theory. They're theory, guys. You've got to separate. So now the Luni-Solar Theory, the precession of the equinox, it accounts for the effect of the attractions of the sun and moon on the Earth's bulge at the equator. In essence, it describes precession of the equinoxes as a wobble in the Earth due to gravitational pull of both the sun and moon. It is presented everywhere as science fact, but so far it still only qualifies as a theory. So let me tell you what the facts are. Hipparchus of Nicaea, around 150 BC, is alleged to have come up with the concept, but he didn't use the word precession of the equinoxes. He didn't use that term, but they say he came up with the concept. It doesn't even matter because it's still over 600 and something years after 713 BC. Claudius Ptolemy wrote Almagest. He's the one that cited that Hipparchus, well, he didn't even cite it. That's what historians are saying. Don't let me lie to you. Historians are claiming that Ptolemy and Almagest is referring to Hipparchus of Nicaea as being the discoverer of precession. But the truth of the matter is, and anybody can verify this, nowhere in Ptolemy's Almagest is precession mentioned. There's a lot of wiggle room they give themselves in here, guys. So I will tell you this, neither one of these men mentioned a 26,000 year cycle or even the 25,920 year zodiac cycle that's so popular in occult studies today, which isn't found anywhere in the historical record. Now, Indian astronomical texts like the Surya Siddhanta, Islamic scholars who were really, really religious about their documentation of star charts, and European astronomers of the Middle Ages and Renaissance translating the old Greek and Roman texts found not one single reference to a 26,000 year cycle or a 25,000 year, 920 year zodiac cycle. Nothing. In fact, not one reference to the word precession can be found anywhere in these periods. Nowhere. It is particularly damning. Remember the 1902 encyclopedia. This whole shelf is nothing but 1902 encyclopedias. All this whole shelf. I just showed you one. You guys can verify it. There's PDF downloads of those. 1902 Encyclopedia Britannica for 1902. The word precession is not in there. So it is particularly damning that the elite astronomers never once mentioned this 26,000 year precessional cycle. Not one of them. You've heard of John Herschel, born in 1792. Many of you have heard of Jean-Baptiste Delambre, yeah, born in 1749, a French mathematician and astronomer. What about Leverrier? I can't pronounce these guys' names. They're French. Leverrier. His name is Urbain Leverrier. Yeah, born in 1811. Nothing. Charles Dulany, born in 1860. Nothing. Simon Newcomb, a Canadian astronomer. So 1835. Nothing. How could this 26,000 year precessional cycle not be mentioned in any of these epic works on astronomy? These are the textbooks on astronomy, guys. Nothing. Principia, I can't pronounce it, by Isaac Newton, first published in 1687. Never mentioned precession, a 26,000 year cycle, but he did mention the phenomenon. He described the phenomenon. At least that's what's claimed. It's claimed by other authors that Sir Isaac Newton understood precession. So we have to take them on faith. Now, Celeste Pierre Simon Laplace, 1799, born. Astronomy Explained upon Sir Isaac Newton's Principles. He wrote the book. Well, actually, James Ferguson wrote the book, but this other astronomer is cited. None of them mention a 26,000 year cycle. It just doesn't exist. Just doesn't exist. Sir John Herschel, nothing about a 26,000 or 25,920 year cycle. Nothing. Theoretical Astronomy by James C. Wattsman, published in 1868. Nothing about a 26,000 year cycle or anything near it. The idea of precession and the precessional cycle is actually rather new. Precession may indeed be real, but it would have to be after 713 BC, the Solaric anomaly. The scientific community seems to have come up with a 26,000 year period at the exact same time as the mystic community did, because the first reference to a 26,000 year cycle that we can find comes from Helena Blavatsky, mentioning the precessional cycle at about the exact length in The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled, about 1888. This is unusual. So, considering all this data, if you are still willing to believe Hancock and Bovell can date civilizations, traditions, and structures using the Zodiac, which didn't come into existence till at least 200 BC, and precessional mathematics, which couldn't possibly have happened until after 713 BC, to these fantastic dates of 10,000 BC, 12,000 BC, and 15,000 years BC, then you can be made to believe in anything. You don't have any filters. There's no logic being applied here. If you can so easily dismiss all these historical facts that have been taken from so many different sources to still believe that these men can use precession of the equinox to date all these ancient places in their theories, then you can't be helped. You've invested your faith in these men because of their prestige and who they are, and how well packaged it all is, and because they all confer with one another. You're not employing intelligence, and that's the subject matter of this video. Which are you going to believe? All the data sets, or all the hyperinflated theory, which dissolves upon analysis of the data sets? So I don't know. Let me see if I have any more images to show you. I really can't remember. Let's see. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Here they are, right here. Oh yes, I definitely have something to show you. Here's fingerprints of the gods. The thesis completely falls apart, guys. This data in this video completely takes that apart. Heaven's Mirror, Graham Hancock. Hamlet's Mill, right here. Here's Helena Blavatsky, Isis Unveiled. Here's the Secret Doctrine, H.P. Blavatsky. The Orion Mystery. This is by Robert Bovell and Adrian Gilbert. The Message of the Sphinx, another Graham Hancock primer, right here. And Robert Bovell, his sidekick. Here it is right here. But look at this. Here's 713 BC. Right there on the bottom, guys, 713 BC. That's where it is in the historical record. That's when the sun went 10 degrees backwards. Everything before that point was 360-day year. That includes Sumer, Egypt, India, the Maya, China, all right here. It's all right here, guys. There it is. The historical record really begins in 3500 BC. So here's Atlantis in the Sea Peoples Federation, 1350 BC. 713 BC. What if precession began here when 5.24 days were added? Then how can over here in 2023 can authors using precession of the equinox?
Can't see it.
Oh man, you got to tell me, man. You can't see this? Oh my God! All right, let me go show it. I got excited, went straight to the file, and didn't share my screen. That's all right. Here's somebody trying to drop a bunch of data on you that just pulled a dumbass move. Share screen. Share screen. Entire screen. Here it goes. I'm going to show you guys real quick everything I just showed. Can't believe I did that. Fingerprints of the gods. Right there. Heaven's Mirror. There's Hamlet's Mill that started it all. 1969. Isis Unveiled, Blavatsky. Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky. Orion Prophecy by Bovell and Gilbert. Message of the Sphinx, Bovell and Hancock. Look at this, 713 BC, right here in the bottom. 713 BC. There it is. How can we believe in 2023, over here to the right, that somebody can use precession of the equinox to date anything way over here? Look at this. Even before. They got dates in their stuff going back to 15,000 BC. Look at it. Here it is. How are you going to date anything back here? Sumer, Egypt, India, and the Maya and China all started here, right here, in the middle of the chart. Recorded human history, right here. How in the hell, if Precession didn't exist before 713 BC. All this, how's that going to be dated? It doesn't even make any sense. So I need to go look at this chart. Here's your zodiac chart right here. Vapor canopy is 1656 years of the pre-flood. There's no zodiac. In fact, it's 13 months on the calendar. It's 13 Bactans. It's under the 13 heavens right here. This is the lunar system. Then the Great Flood happens in 2239 BC. Right there, Phoenix cataclysm. Matriarchy falls. Counting of the stars is finished. Reign of the moon is over. Civilizations quit using the quipu and only oral tradition. Now, 2239 BC, Phoenix cataclysm, the sun is born. Utu Shamash appears for the first time in the Sumerian pantheon. Horus appears the first time in the Egyptian pantheon. Patriarchy takes over. No longer counting stars, they're counting suns. This is the sun calendars. No longer the reign of the moon, it's now the reign of the sun. No longer oral tradition in quipus, now it is written script. Here it is. This is the water sun age right here. Here's the shining herd, zodiac, Mulapin, but it's only 6 signs. And it disappears because of two dark ages that happened after that. Now, we go through here. We have all this evidence. I found out Hindu zodiac 1400 BC is only mentioned in a book. There's no absolute evidence for it, whatever. Vedic scholars say that the zodiac was imported into India from Greece in the Greek period. And that is particularly damning. Zodiac of Dendera right here, Chinese zodiac. Earliest possible Chinese zodiac is 500 BC, but this is traditional speculation. It's not scientific. The archaeological evidence shows 200 BC. Yeah, this is amazing stuff, guys. It's amazing stuff, and it basically shows you right here. That's why there's not a hint of the zodiac in all these ancient texts. None of these ancient texts have a hint of the zodiac. It's all contrived. Here's a better one right here. There's Atlantis, Göbekli Tepe. Here's Hancock's Younger Dryas civilization at 10,800 BC over here at the end. Catalhoyuk. Look at all these fantastic dates. We have nothing in the historical record that goes back. How does Hancock get these dates? Hancock and the rest of them get those dates way beyond the historical record because they use the precession of the equinox. But as I've shown, the precession of the equinox can't be before 713 BC. It's a falsified version of dating real events. This is why scientists don't still consider it a theory, and this is why scientists dismiss Hamlet's mill. Yeah, man, it's crazy. You can't get past these facts. Here's the historical record. This is what you need to be studying. This is what's all verifiable. Everything here has data sets attached to it. And there's 713 BC right there in the middle. That's when the sun retrograded. That's when the whole phenomenon began. This is when we added 5 unlucky days to our calendar. And man, have we been unlucky ever since. All right, let's get out of there. Now, I believe you saw that. I believe you guys saw all that. All right. I think I got them all. I think I got everything. Yes, I did. So I showed a lot of fragments from old books and different texts. I showed a lot of material in here. So you guys are definitely going to want copies of that. I'm going to put all those images with this presentation. So when you get your single free download, you'll have all those texts as well, all the source materials. 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'm surprised. Over almost 1,900 people hung around. I appreciate it. That is my presentation, guys. My presentation actually dovetails. It goes lockstep with my prior presentations on the Zodiac, on my other free downloads. This is all part of one elaborate deception. And we have to peel these things layer by layer by layer, guys. This is And what's really crazy is the material that I gave you today is almost unmentioned by everybody in the entire world. Why? Why the silence? Are there people who know that bringing this data back to the public sector is going to undermine a whole lot of historical BS that's been published? Why else would they totally ignore all this information? It's there for anybody to find. It's all there, guys. Believe me, there's a reason why the 1902 edition Encyclopedia Britannica does not include precession. I normally pay a lot more attention to my chat, guys, but I had a lot to get out. That coffee got me wired up. I got an empty stomach. I'm so hungry. Man, I'm hungry. Oh, you're gonna have to give me a couple hours or so to get the PDF available. But I will. You won't even have to come back to the same video. I'm gonna put it in the description box and in the pinned comment. But I'm also gonna do a formal a YouTube post in the community for the free download. So in case some of you don't remember to come back, you'll get that notification. I'll also put the free download link in Facebook and on Twitter, on X. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Thank you, man. Appreciate the compliments. But yeah, we got to get down to the nitty gritty, guys. We have got to peel away the layers of bad data. Whether it's the intent of these authors to put out misinformation or not is irrelevant. They may be just making genuine mistakes because they haven't gone that deep into the historical narratives in the historical records. It could be that, or we could put our tinfoil hats on and we could say that these authors are all financed by the CIA. I don't care. Either one isn't even relevant to me. I don't care. All I care about is removing all this bad data so we can see what's left. Because what's left, no matter, remember, Sherlock Holmes said it best. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle knew. He knew. He said, when you remove the improbable, what's left, no matter how uncomfortable, is the truth. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing in Archaics, guys. We're applying the Socratic method, and we're applying the wisdom of Sherlock Holmes. But until later, and we can do some Q&A. I'll probably do Q&A on Facebook. I'll post this video on Facebook myself, and I'll probably do Q&A underneath it. If you have more questions about this presentation, go to the Archaics Facebook page, and I'll engage in the chat either tonight or tomorrow, and we'll just address a lot more of this. I have a lot more data in this. I just couldn't present it all. It's too much material. This is the abbreviated version. I could probably write a whole book on this. But yeah, it's we'll do that. We'll do that in the Facebook group. But until then, I love you guys. I appreciate it. I'll be thinking about you when I eat whatever it is I'm about to eat.